Hello everyone, it's Monica here. So today we have Mr. Binoy, who is a Secretary Steel, and previously he was serving at Ministry of Commerce and Industries as a Special Secretary for Logistics. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
So we would like to know, since you have completed 6 months in the steel industry, how do you describe the current status?
Yes, steel is quite an important subject, and we definitely think that it is a strategic item which the country needs to nurture well and look after well. In this context, I feel very happy to be associated with the steel sector, and I'm happy to also inform that it is doing well, with of course quite a few challenges around. So we do need to be aware of those challenges and try to see how best we can address them, so that the growth rate which is there for our steel industry as a whole is maintained, and we are able to meet the requirements of the domestic users primarily, and also if there is a possibility of a few markets around in the neighborhood, we should definitely look into that also.
Now, since 2018 and 19 are nearly at the end, how do you rate the industry performance in this last 1 year?
The industry has been facing challenges. There were a few months in the recent past when the prices had fallen, when the inventories had gone up. We were getting a little worried on that account. As you know, our steel industry has a very narrow margin, and it makes up with the volume, and if the price and the inventory, if these go a little out of sync, then it definitely rings some kind of caution. I would not say an alarm bell, but it definitely calls for some caution. Well, things have improved, but still I would think that we need to watch the situation. Our industry feels that the recent protectionist measures undertaken by some of the countries, particularly the US, Canada, EU, Turkey, a few others, definitely is not good for the country, for India. And there is a possibility, some kind of imminent threat of some imports coming in. So we have to guard against that.
So on those protectionist measures, you mean to say Indian exports may get
Yes,
hampered?
Our exports are down. I would not like to go into the figures, but our exports are definitely, I think, around 30% lower compared to last year. And secondly, our imports have gone up. Of course, not substantially, I would say marginally, but the trend appears that there could be a possibility, if we are not alert, that it may go up further.
So we have observed that India has become a net importer, and India on the other hand has signed a lot of free trade agreements, and now it's going for RCEP. Whereas, like you just said, globally other countries are putting protection measures, safeguard measures to protect their domestic manufacturing, whereas India is willingly going to sign RCEP, particularly for steel as well. So you think, as in, what is the scenario like? You think India is strong enough to handle the competition, or is it Indian steel is not considered as an important commodity?
Indian steel is always considered an important commodity by the government. All successive governments have been considering it very strategic, and so I don't think that that's the issue. Regarding RCEP, Steel Ministry's view, I mean, I'm not talking there of the general overall view of the government. I would say the Steel Ministry's view has always been that we have to be careful about this sector. The other sectors, we would not like to comment on that. So that is our point of view, and anyway, those things are still Ministry of Commerce and Industries is looking into that, and at this juncture I don't see much to worry about on that front. Otherwise, I have nothing against RCEP as such, because or FTA as such, but definitely the steel sector being little vulnerable in this regard, we have to keep a special watch. So that is all that I can say at this juncture. And our domestic industry also has to gear up parallelly, has to become more competitive, and also start getting into the special steels, you know, things like automotive and electrical steel and things like that. Right now we are importing, largely importing. I'm happy to inform you that some of our companies have started some work in this regard. It's a very welcome thing, and as you know that with the our policy that if something can be produced within the country, it is always welcome.
And if we talk about automobile grade steel, the question what arises is, the automobile companies in India are importing the automotive grade of steel, whereas they claim that we are not making those specialized grade. That is the only problem. Whereas our steel companies are saying that they have got into making specialized steel, but then automotive manufacturers are not procuring it. So are we going to, as in trying to make a link between automotive companies and steel companies so that they, there's some kind of trade arrangement can be made between them?
See, we are always very conscious of the downstream industries. We have to encourage the downstream industries. So that even the Steel Ministry is very clear in its mind. And any decision that we take, we do keep that in mind. With regard to automotive grade steel or API grade steel or electrical steel, these we are definitely in our infancy. We have to gear up. Somewhere we have to encourage our industry also we have to give some push to our industry.
That's right.
To start making it.
Yes.
If we right from beginning say that no, we are not producing and our downstream will suffer, and therefore we should not make here any steel and we should keep importing, that may not be that good for the country. So it has to be a balance. It has to be a balance. While we encourage our domestic industry to start producing all the grades, we also would request and we would like that some of the companies which do produce such kind of steel, they should invest in India.
Yes.
We have got a very good investment climate. You are aware how well we are doing in ease of doing business index. We have risen to 77th position. We will continue rising. I think very shortly by next year we are aiming to be 50. So the states are vying with each other, to provide a good investment atmosphere, environment. With that thing in mind, people should start making things here, and at a more competitive. We are well endowed with good quality of iron ore. We are now exporting some of the good quality of iron ore elsewhere. I mean, that can be taken advantage here itself. We will encourage such kind of also investment if it happens. But let me be also honest to add you that our domestic industry which is here, they are gearing up themselves for production of these things. And definitely we should also support them. We should not come in the way, otherwise they will never grow. They will never, and there will be no investment. So
That's
both
right.
ways we are losers.
That's right.
While keeping in mind the downstream industry, we would keep that in mind. We would not allow that to suffer.
So steel quality has become a point of discussion nowadays, maybe because of some reports. So it has been reported that the secondary steel sector is not producing the better quality of steel for the construction sector, and particularly we are pointing out TMT bars. So you have any message for them, as in you think the quality of steel is an issue with us, or I'm sure as in we need to keep improving.
Ministry of Steel is very clear in this regard, and it already has been said. Our minister has also made it very clear time and again. See, we are one of the very few ministries which have maximum quality control orders, which makes any standard enforceable. Now we have this BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards. Now that is the authorized body in the country to make standards. And let me tell you, we have taken the lead in that regard. One of the reasons for doing that was that the so-called secondary, I mean, again, is nothing that we are showing some kind of a second grade or anything of that kind. Yeah. It is as good or as bad as any other industry. And one of the reasons for bringing out all these QCOs was to give necessary encouragement to this sector to produce quality steel. You are aware that more than 50% of steel produced in India domestically is by this kind of an industry, and they are well spread out in the country. I would not agree with any statement saying that there is an issue of quality. There can be individual cases. We need to get into the details, probe it, and ensure that these don't recur. We should also strengthen our own quality monitoring mechanism better. For this purpose, we already have BIS, which is tasked with doing this kind of work, and we have been continuously in dialogue with them to see that they keep continuously take samples, get them analyzed, and see that no substandard, let's say rebar, is supplied. We would like to keep the consumers in as our topmost priority. Whatever steel we supply to them, it should be of quality. There is no question of any compromise. So to that extent, if one or two errant, steel making, when you produce such large, I mean, we are happy now that we are producing about, last year, calendar year, we have produced more than 106, 107 million tons.
Yes.
We are now the second largest steel producer in the world.
Right.
Now, in that, when with this huge quantity, there might be some instances of, one or two people whose that particular product line may not have met with some standard. But that's not to condone what they have done. Not at all. We should be very harsh with them. But then we have to see this in this perspective, in the larger perspective. And we want to encourage people to come forward to produce quality steel, which can meet the demands and the aspirations of our steel users.
So do you think there is a need of continuous monitoring and inspections for TMT bar companies?
I would also suggest the industry also, in a self-regulating mechanism, should also keep continuously do this kind of a testing. So with these two things happening, I'm sure this should not be a problem.
So I've met a lot of builders. They say that we are only concerned about our margins and we don't look for the quality until and unless we are making high-rise buildings. So we look for some bigger brands, and as we go up, we change our brands to we take some other brands just to check on our margins and to control our margins. So on those aspects, do you think we need to do some quality awareness programs all over country to spread awareness about the quality of steel, because it is a matter of human life safety after all. We cannot compromise over. You think there is a need of marketing and continuous promotions to spread quality awareness on steel?
That is happening through various mechanisms. In fact, it's a continuous process. And this particular aspect in the recent past that this issue was raised, Ministry of Steel has been interacting with media and has been mentioning about this, which I'm sure people at large are getting aware of what are the issues. And the industry also is getting sensitized that they definitely need to look into this aspect carefully. But if it is BIS standards, every industry, if it has gotten the BIS certification, they are supposed to follow a certain regimen. They are supposed to follow certain precautions and certain conditions for making such kind of products. And I think at this juncture, we have not gotten any kind of, except isolated cases. We have to also see that the large number of people are producing quality goods.
Yes, of course. So I would like to congratulate you for domestically manufactured iron steel product policy. The draft amendment is also very attractive, and I'm sure this is going to benefit our steel industry at large. Are there any other measures of this kind of support the domestic industry to enhance? Are you coming up with more policies to support it?
We are looking at this domestically manufactured iron steel products policy. We are thinking of, it's a continuous process of looking at it, whether there are some shortcomings or things like that. So these things anyway is always work in progress. Yes, this policy, we are very happy with this policy. It has definitely had a lot of impact on the industry, domestic industry, and I would say that we need to keep improving it as time comes, and so.
So in terms of boosting steel demand, there are many policies of the government where steel can be included. Like there is a PM Awas Yojana, housing for all, or smart cities, or power for all. Can Steel Ministry try and include some clauses into these policies saying that the steel of certain percentage can be included in these projects?
See,
which can be locally procured.
The GFR has already been amended, and there we do have brought this concept of life cycle costing. So it is hoped that with that kind of a thing, our different departments, organizations, they would look into this aspect. Steel is a green product.
Yes.
It is recyclable. It is definitely a very superior product compared to other things. Definitely, it is something which we should, promote. There is no denying of that. However, how it comes about and all that is a matter of details. The Steel Ministry is very conscious of this, and it definitely wants to promote more usage of more and more steel. And
in government
we are
projects
thinking of, we have to first educate, and they are all educated, I don't say that educate, but we have to just also give them instances of how the steel structures, how they can be more useful and more environmental friendly compared to other structures.
Right.
And our architects, our structural engineers, our designers, they have to be taken together and they have to be convinced that what is being said is actually correct.
That's right.
So that is the challenge before us, and we are trying to address that in a small way. Beginning, we are trying to do that. We are in collaboration with the IITs. We are in collaboration with other agencies. We have one organization called INSTAG based in Kolkata. It also is supposed to give encouragement to the use of steel. So we are doing that.
So I think we need to encourage INSTAG a lot because they are working on affordable housing.
Excuse me.
And we really want to see if actually the project has been implemented on affordable housing using INSTAG's skills and research.
Yeah. So if we take the life cycle cost, if we take, the value of when once you dismantle a structure and you can retrieve the entire steel thing, it becomes a very competitive kind of a thing. The other materials used cannot be recycled. We in India are becoming increasingly environment conscious.
That's right.
I think a time will come when steel will have a very bright future, when more and more of steel structures, be it in bridges, be it in housing, be it in other constructions. You are aware that our per capita consumption is still very low. It is around 69 kgs, whereas the international standard is over 200 kgs.
That's right.
We have a long way to go.
Yeah.
And that is the reason that we came out with this 300 million tons of projection, because our consumption growth, our domestic demand is increasing by over 7%, 7.4%. So if we extrapolate that, our demand, our consumption would be around something like 250 million ton by 2030-31. So for that, to produce that quantity, you need a capacity of around 300 million tons. So that's how that figure was arrived at based on our current consumption level. I just see no reason why our consumption level should decrease in the coming years.
That's right.
Because our consumption is only going to go up. With the government's emphasis on infrastructure and other things, this will definitely be something which needs to be watched. And I'm sure that with that kind of order, our steel industry has to start investing into their expansion and things like that, which of course is a separate chapter.
So lastly, do you like to give any message to our steel industry?
Well, they have to be competitive. They have to keep in mind the downstream industry. They have to keep in mind the consumers, and they have to make quality value-added products. That's it. And our PSUs in particular, they have to ensure that they do compete on all techno-economic parameters with our other private sector. That's it.
Thank you so much for giving me that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.